I think we'll just get started. Gerald Ponsford, welcome. Good to see you again.
Good to be in your den. I think this is the first time for me that I've ever been here, so
You're usually up there.
looking forward to the experience. So anyway, thanks to the Mayor and to all the councillors for the opportunity to speak to my submissions on Te Moana Road. Just for those who don't or aren't aware, I am one of 3 spokespeople for the Te Moana residents group that's focusing particularly on a variety of issues surrounding speed, noise, infrastructure on Te Moana Road. Many of them have signed a significant petition, which at some stage we'll get round to presenting. The key things, and I'll just read it out, they just want to ensure the majority of vehicles travel at the 50 kph maximum limit and reduce the frequent incidents of dangerous speeds, unsafe conditions and disturbing noise levels. Road markings to narrow the road carriageway along with raised zebra crossings and prominent signage are required as a minimum, along with restrictions on heavy trucks. I've never actually done a submission on an LTP, so I think I've got about 5 minutes, so I'll just do it and then we can go from there. So I think a key objective of the LTP is, as noted in your LTP, our place is livable for current and future generations. For 420 to 470 Te Moana Road, livability is being significantly compromised by the excessive speeds. As noted by KCDC officers, there are over 10,000 vehicles per week travelling above 60 kilometres an hour in that section. That's 10,000. This generates significant extra noise, twice the 50 kph level, as well as safety implications 40% higher for those in and on around the road. Te Moana Road is very busy now. There's about 2.5 million vehicles traverse there every year, about 50,000 per week. That would be livable if we could keep them at or under the 50 kph stated limit. Unfortunately, over 80% are going above 50k and 25%, based on council monitoring, is travelling at 60, 70 and 80 kph, making it a little less livable than it would be. The excessive speeds conflict with the climate change objectives in the LTP, i.e. faster speeds equal more emissions. Your needs, our priorities is another key theme in the LTP. The experience of ratepayers and residents on the relevant section of Te Moana Road suggests the opposite. 8 years of dialogue on traffic calming, signage, appropriate road surfacing, asphalting, modern footpathing on both sides, formal zebra crossings, optical narrowing, car parking and the like have for all intents and purposes been ignored or deflected. When the Kapiti Expressway opened, considerable advocacy was made by the then Mayor, Guru Nathan, and councillors to mitigate the noise impacts that many will remember on Raumati and Paraparaumu residents, and resulted in a significant number of noise walls being established along the motorway. Te Moana Road suffered similar impacts. It used to be, if people remember, just a simple access way between Old State Highway 1 and the beach. It is now a major urban connector. Nothing has been done to mitigate impacts of on Te Moana Road of that significant change, including this 300% increase in heavy trucks, particularly logging trucks that Te Moana has been forced upon, and it's, as I said, it's become an urban connector road. I believe in all the discussions that I've been privy to, including the Mayor and what have you, council officers have provided sanitised information to councillors on the extent of the situation. For example, 54 kilometres an hour was the median speed, and it still is roughly the median speed. On itself, that presents, what's the issue? The issue is it ignores the fact that there are 25% of cars going faster than 60 kilometres an hour, up to 110 kilometres an hour on what is a residential street. Another one, there's a lot of discussion provided by council officers that as an urban connector road, 40 to 60 kilometres an hour is the appropriate speed. Timuana Road currently 50 kph, sits nicely in the middle. What's the issue? What it ignores, and information from NZTA indicates that the safe and appropriate speed limit for Timuana Road, where the primary land use is residential, should be 40 kilometres an hour. That is NZTA's advice. They also indicate, as part of that advice, that formal pedestrian crossings and a host of traffic calming measures to ensure traffic travels at or below the posted speed limit is required. Monitoring over 8 years by council officers has confirmed that excessive speeds are a regular feature on Timuana Road. As I said, frequent examples, hundreds a week of vehicles travelling 70, 80 kilometres and above. Council officers accept this in the various reports they put to WCB, responded to myself, and they acknowledge that there's a lot of extra noise and safety implications, but they seem to be only interested in continuing with ongoing monitoring rather than passive and active speed management to ensure that 50 k's is seen as the maximum. That's fine, but after 8 years and no real prospect of the situation changing, why are we just continuing to monitor? That's the bizarre thing. A recent report by...
Have you got much more? Because we need to
Not
leave
much
some
more.
time
You
for
can
questions.
talk. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, is that all right?
Yep.
Cool. Have we got any questions?
I've got a
Councillor
question.
Wilson.
Yep.
There was a report done for council quite a long time ago. I seem to recall seeing that, where there was actually a plan. This was for a crossing area, a safe crossing area. Have you had any... My understanding is the only thing that would realistically be holding that back is money. Is that right? Or is there...
So there was a plan to install 3 refuges.
Yeah.
I don't call them safe crossing zones because refuges confuse people, particularly children. They were to be installed in 2021, about June 2021. In May 2021, we were advised the funding had been withdrawn by NZTA 1 month before they was being installed. So nothing has ever been done.
The actual plan, the design,
The plan,
all
the
that was
design,
paid for and done, right?
paid for and done, all of that, yeah. But I just reiterate, as a group, we do not believe that refuges are appropriate. We have always advocated for formal zebra crossings every 400 metres along Timuana Road. There isn't a single safe crossing point.
It's true. Thanks.
Councillor Pravanov.
Thank you, Gerald. I know for coming along and speaking today. I know you've been working on this for a very long time, as you mentioned. So, zebra crossings would ideally make it easier for people to cross the road. Do you think it's important to try and address the excessive speed that has been used along that road, and how would be the best way to achieve that?
Okay, so we just rely, as you're aware, the area, if anyone's been there, it is optically wide. There are no car parks because they have decided about 10 years ago to put narrow, I suppose, cycle lane with median strip and a central median strip, which actually operates as a overtaking lane. And that's what's actually happened frequently. So if we actually just go back to a normal car parks each side, narrow the actual road carriageway, that would be fine. That's one suggestion that has happened. Obviously, raised zebra crossings are critical to doing that. If they're every 400 metres, that would be great. Other passive ways would be painted speed limits on the actual road surface, so people are aware of them, which is good. Once you enter Te Moana Road at the old State Highway 1, there is actually not a 50 km/h sign until you get down to around about my house, which is a kilometre down. Don't know why, it's been raised many times. There is just no signage. No one knows. People believe because of the optical widening that the speed on Te Moana Road and the lack of thing is probably 60, 70 k's. We just need to make it more obvious.
Thank you. So I suppose that some of these, like narrowing, moving the lines in, that's actually, do you think that would be a relatively cheaper exercise
I
than
don't think
putting
we
in
should
zebra?
go through the kind of operational
Okay.
responses
Okay.
today.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Provanoff. David Shand.
Just three quick points. Is one of the issues that there's walkways, footpaths only on one side of the road? That presumably makes a difference. First point. Secondly, what about safety to cyclists who are there? They haven't pushed for a cycleway. Maybe some have, but I mean that would raise other issues. But don't you think that raised zebra crossings every 400 metres is perhaps a bit over the top? That would be my reaction as somebody who uses it every day and who lives just off Te Moana Road, right?
Very interesting point. That is a good starting point. I mean, I think we have to understand that Waikanae was often described as being an old people's town. It no longer is. Active, elderly people are in Waikanae, yes, but they're a lot more active than they were 20 years ago. We are also seeing more and more prams, babies, children. Waikanae School, Kapanui School, they're exploding. Kids are out and about all the time. We encourage people to cross that road frequently, but without regular crossings, people will not use that crossing. That's the key thing. If you're having a crossing, you're having to go 500 metres till you come to the next crossing, what are you going to do? You're going to cross an unsafe road. Logging trucks, speeding vehicles, 70 k's an hour is the norm.
Crossings with safety zones in them?
Crossings with, I think at the end of the day, I think zebra crossings are fine. People know what they are to the users of the pedestrian crossing and to vehicles approaching them. But on your other point, cycleways, love to see cycleways on Te Moana Road. It's certainly wide enough and it is required.
And what about footpaths on the south side?
Footpaths on the south side would be fantastic as well. I mean, at the end of the day, the footpaths that are on the north side of Te Moana Road are 40 years old. They're only 1 metre wide and they haven't been maintained in 40 years.
Correct.
And there is nothing on
So-
the other side.
So I think we have the broad submission about the fact that we need to do some work there. It's not up to us to be traffic safety engineers today and try and sort all the problems. I think we've heard the perspective of the local residents and the fact that they want us to respond in some kind of meaningful way, but how we do that is not a question for today. Bearing that in mind, Shelley, Councillor Warwick, have you got a question? A question? Yep, great.
My question is, are you aware that raised pedestrian crossings are actually very undesired by our emergency services, mostly, fire and ambulance, because they actually have to stop to go over them? We've had this issue in Otaki, and our fire chief has said they're undesired, so that on a feeder road to a lot of houses is quite an issue, and I just urge you to talk with them also about the plans you have. Raised pedestrian crossings are good for pedestrians, but maybe not for our emergency services.
I do accept there is a balancing act, but there are raised pedestrian crossings throughout New Zealand and worldwide that have to be traversed by emergency vehicles. Well, maybe we could have one every 800 metres and a zebra crossing, normal, not raised, in between.
Councillor Halliday.
Gerald, how are you?
Very good.
As Ward Councillor of Paraparaumu, we have this wonderful road down the middle called Kapiti Road, and we have this proliferation of things called traffic lights. And I would be remiss not to suggest that maybe it would be suitable to have some crossing lights on Te Moana Road. Would that be something that would be fought against or something that would potentially be supported?
I'm not sure it would be overly well received. However, I agree by the fire station. There is no problem having lights, particularly when they're about to exit. That would be absolutely great. There are certain areas on Te Moana Road where you could, and I would think maybe down that Park Avenue, Te Moana intersection, which is dangerous as well.
Thank
I wouldn't
you.
suggest it as ward councillor because I would want to get re-elected, but that was just something I'd put out there.
Thank you. Thank you for this discussion and bringing your concerns today, Gerald. And we'll move on to Catherine Ennis.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mayor Holborough, councillors, kia ora, and thank you very much for allowing me to be heard today in support of my submission. I'm just fishing for my glasses, sorry. So in respect to my submission on the long-term plan, I really just want to make three main points today. And the first is that KCDC has challenges in terms of infrastructure, like many councils around the country. And for some councils, the issue is deferred maintenance, which has not been attended to for many years. And I think we can see that that's an issue for Wellington. And sometimes councils have been criticised for what's colloquially called shiny projects and focusing on those instead of dealing with deferred maintenance. I'm not suggesting that KCDC is an example of that particular problem, but the first point I want to make is that ratepayers in this area are very concerned about the proposed hike in rates. And so it's important that council sticks to its knitting. I know that's not a very popular and it's a very hackneyed phrase, but at the same time, I think ratepayers generally, and I certainly am concerned about the cost of unnecessary projects. And the rating base in this area is not substantial, both from an affordability level. You only have something like 26,500 rating units, I think, at this stage. There's some increase projected for that. So it's not a huge rating base, and also the income level, as I understand it, is around 30,000. So most of the community is very concerned about the affordability of rates. So there's a certain amount of resentment, I think, generated amongst the community when people look at what they may consider to be non-essential projects. So one example that I've commented on that, about that in my submission, is the current cap process, for which a lot of money has already been spent, and which has resulted in some pathways costings, which unfortunately only emerged a week before the closing deadline for both submissions on the cap process itself and the long-term plan. And I would ask the council to please clarify for the community how some of these still, I understand, not formally proposed estimated costs that have been generated as a result of the cap process are going to affect ratepayers in future. So we're looking at a long-term plan now for where those estimated costs have not been projected in. As I understand, the only costs that are specifically identified in the long-term plan relating to the coastal adaptation plan are the costs of replacing the seawalls at Raumati and Paikukariki. The cap process in my view and the view of many concerned ratepayers, is a very overblown and overzealous planning process. I might use the term virtue signalling, in that the CAP panel seems to have grasped climate change as something to exercise on the basis of the most extreme planning scenarios. And in that, I would point out that, in fact, the council is not following the advice that was recently given. I'm looking at the letter from MFE, dated Wednesday, the 8th of November, where it specifically says that New Zealand is encouraged to use the scientific and technical outputs of the IPCC, but not necessarily obliged. Secondly, that the basis for estimating sea level rise is still in the scientific peer review process, whereas the CAP panel has taken the 8.5 levels and basically taken them from global models and then applied specifically to the Kapiti Coast. And thirdly, your letter from MFE has advised that instead of taking those projections as tablets of stone, the Ministry's advice is to use approach C, which is the SLR projections with locally measured data. And that doesn't seem to be happening with the CAP process. So what we're concerned about is that, first of all, the CAP costings for the various pathways have come out. They're not yet been formally proposed to council, but the word is out there that these projections amount to about 2.6 billion over the next 10 years or so, or around by 2030. So what the community wants to know is that a rates hike of 17% for this year and between 6 to 8% projected over the next years of the long-term plan is already pretty unaffordable as far as most community members are concerned. What is going to happen if those estimates for the CAP process that are coming out of the CAP process are applied, and when will that happen? Thirdly, and connected with that, I'd like to raise the issue of a proposal for a climate action rate. I found the submissions form very unfriendly in that regard because I was obliged to tick one of the boxes in order to be able to make some comments on that, because the comment box didn't actually come up until you ticked an option. So in fact, I don't support the proposal for a climate action rate, because I would suggest to you that what is required at the moment is a sensible approach to maintaining existing coastal adaptation measures, so maintenance of the seawalls. But what is clearly required is to put a proper monitoring process in place so that the global projections that have been used for the CAP projections and the CAP modelling can be, that model can be calibrated with local data, which doesn't seem to be happening at the moment and not being taken into account by the CAP team. If those two things were done, then the council has some time to plan in more practical terms for coastal adaptation strategies. Once the trends are actually monitored effectively and data used for the local area has time to be assessed. I would suggest that the whole CAP process could have been undertaken in about 6 months with a reasonable assessment of the risks undertaken. And again, MFE makes the point that the 8.5 SSP5 ratios are to be used to stress test the upper bound of hazard assessments. Not to take that as set in stone and then projections built out from that current scenario. And to conclude, and going back to my first point on the shiny projects or non-essential projects, because of the current affordability issues, I would suggest that the council needs to look with a fine-tooth comb through what could be considered as non-essential. And I raise in that also the cost and the implications of the whakamaninga or kapiti arrangement that you have, which a lot of the community are concerned appears to be driving the council and resulting in a lot of additional expenditure. I have made the point that the partnership arrangement that you have with the 3 local mana whenua iwi only actually represents about 2,100 people. That's less than 4% of the total population in the Kapiti district. And the council has escalated from the appointed representatives from the 3 iwi who sit on council committees and therefore have an enhanced access to council decision making. That enhanced representation is only serving about 2,000 people. It's only 1/3 of all those who identify as Māori in the Kapiti district. And the extent to which the costs involved with that and the institutional edifice that the council now has around that, with a whole management unit that appears to be devoted entirely to supporting that liaison arrangement with the 3 iwi in the area, is a concern to many community. And previously I have written on behalf of some concerned ratepayers suggesting that we actually agreed with the decision of council to establish a Māori ward. We think that's fair because it gives Māori in the area elected representation rather than appointed representatives of iwi sitting on the council unelected. But we did not support that if the current arrangement with 3 mana whenua iwi is to continue. So those are the main points of my submission, and thank you again for listening to me.
Thank you for your attendance today. Councillor Wilson.
Cool, thank you, Catherine. Just a point of clarification. So you're talking about the climate action rate and that it's a new rate. And I can understand why people are confused thinking it's a new rate, because in our long-term plan it says this new rate, it's actually not a new rate, it's no more rating. It's just it's a shifting. Is that, now can we just get that clarified? Because my understanding is that this isn't, it is confusing because in the document it says it's a new rate. Yeah, but it doesn't alter, it's just my understanding was that it was a clarification of where money was being spent as opposed to it
It's a
being
new rate,
another
but it's not
500,000.
additional rates.
That's right.
It's a new rate, but it's not additional
It's not
funding.
additional, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so that was that clarification on that. And another point of clarification, I guess, is the 8.5% SSP5 ratio. We haven't, as a council, haven't heard back from CAP, so they haven't reported back to council yet. So the LTP wouldn't reflect any of those numbers because we don't actually know what the numbers are. There's speculation about what the numbers are.
I did acknowledge that.
Yeah, until they finally come back. That, but I note your point on that, and I agree with your support for a Maori ward. Excellent.
Great. Thanks for coming in today, Catherine. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
Our Pool Family Trust. The inimitable Quentin Pool. Welcome, Quentin.
Good to see you, Janet. And
Good to see you.
Good to see everyone here. First of all, I must start off and, on behalf of myself and a team we had working, I must congratulate Mark, Jing and Michael on the help they gave us. It was something spectacular we got from them, and you would have been proud as councillors to see these guys helping. So really thank you, Mark. It was a tremendous effort from your team, so thank you. What we've looked at is a total overview of the long-term plan, and we've come up with some ideas and recommendations, but it is obvious you've got problems. You've got some great ideas here, and I commend them to you. Fully funding depreciation, that is a must. You can't even put it off for 1 year. You've got to do it in year one. Just don't muck around. That has been the problem you guys have, historically have done all the way through. Discontinuing delivering older persons housing. Yes, totally agree. It's not your knitting. Get out of it. It will help for the clients because they'll be able to get access to other government funding. It's a no-brainer. Your aspirations to reduce debt, love it. But that's going to take some time, as far as I can work out. So, I've given you a series of spreadsheets to look at. And the first one we're going to do is rates analysis. The rates paid by Kapiti ratepayers will not increase by 17%. They're going to increase by 19.47% in year one. And not by 7%, but by over 8% for the years thereafter, if you hold where you're going at the moment. Also, your rates will have doubled in 8 years, under 8 years, in the term of this LTP. Total rates. That's just crazy stuff. So we've got a problem. Let's sort it. And that's the only answer. The other problem is you cannot hold the affordability table for rates to under 5%, as has been managed for the past 17 years. And that is a major. You say it's perfectly okay to put it up to 7%, but it's not, because each year the median rises according to the stats department. And in fact, Mark and his team have got it rising by 3% for the term of this LTP, which is far greater than I would put it at. I know what's happening in the private sector. I doubt whether we'll see a pay increase this coming year or next year. I don't know what's going to happen in the public service, but I suspect their aspirations won't be quite as high as they have been in the past either. So you've got a huge problem there. At the moment, your affordability table on gross income is going up to 7.5%. But actually, we pay it out of our disposable income, our income after tax. It's not our gross income. None of us see gross incomes. It doesn't hit our wallets. So you start looking at disposable income, and by golly, year one, 6%, year 10, 10.1%. 10% of your total income gone in rates. That's if you hold to the current thing. So it's, I know it's not affordable. You can tinker around and drop it here, there, and everywhere, but I think it's more structural than just tinkering. We've got to look at it realistically. So I've recast the LTP, and what I've done is I'm going to be double dipping on depreciation and the unfunded depreciation and the total interest expense in my next spreadsheet. And I realise that. But by doing that, it is addressing, making sure you are paying your bills. You're covering your costs. I accept the 4 activity areas: water management, access and transport, wastewater, and stormwater management should be left alone. It's important we keep investing in those areas, and I accept what the team here have done to look at it. There are 2 areas that are showing significant areas of reduction in year 1, from year 0 to year 1. That's coastal management and community support. So I haven't attacked them quite as severely because I think, obviously they're taking costs out. They should be rechecked. But the other 10 activity areas should have a minimum of a 6.5% reduction in year 1. So that brings us back into line, big time. So what do we get out of that? We drop our rates. So instead of looking at under a gross taxation thing of starting off at year 1 at 5.3%, we're looking at 3.6%. Or to my mind, more importantly, looking at disposable money out of your bank from your wallet, we're looking at a 4.79% increase. Now that is affordable. The interesting thing I never realised, and in the discussions that came up about this Shand report. Now I started shaking when I heard a Shand report because that didn't do much for my blood pressure. But I was told it was written by a different Shand, so I had a look at. Was it you? Was it? Oh, good to meet you, David. And pardon? No way. It's the other Shand who had to get under the table. No, but the interesting thing, I was reading your executive summary, and it talks very strongly there that rates are affordable on a gross income basis at 3%, but it's becoming dangerous at 5%.
No, I didn't say that. No. What it says, 3% was a reference to total rates being 3% of GDP.
Anyway, I'll pull it out.
There's some discussion about.
It was a bloody. Where the hell is it? What did I leave behind?
Knowing David's attention
Anyway,
to detail, I
yeah.
believe that he's
But anyway,
correct about what he wrote in his report.
what it was we were picking up on the affordability thing, and the big part is, okay, we had a report that was accepted and is being used. So it talks about gross income. I'll use gross income, but I'm also aware it's disposable income that is going to affect especially the beneficiaries and the superannuates of this district. And they're the people who are going to be absolutely crucified by this if we continue down this rating scheme that we've got going in front of us. So what is the way through it? Recast the bloody thing. Do it properly. There's plenty of people here in the community can, okay, time is of the essence, but I managed to do mine up in 4 days. It's not perfect, and I've double dipped. I make no bones about it. There's double dipping in mine, so the rates could be lower. So there are opportunities there. the rationale is, the other part, the interesting thing is, when you look at full-time equivalents for the last 6 years, it's been reported in the annual reports, increased by 23%. That figure was 357, sorry, I should be looking at my computer haven. And yet I understand that the executive are talking about a budgeting FTE number of 437. Again, higher. What extras are we getting from it? Come on, you guys are meant to be looking and protecting us from that. Are you doing your job? You know, why do we need extra people when we're getting no better outcomes? Are the outcomes necessary? What programs need to be stopped? It was interesting when I asked the question of governance of the finance group, and they came through and said, basically it was talking about growth, balance, and climate change. Now, okay, that was spoken to me, but it was to a direct query I had written down to them. That worries me. If you think it's good governance, I don't. And you guys are in charge of it. So protect us, look after us. Don't go with the flow, challenge all the way through. You know, so the interesting thing was, you know, I had 2 guys helping on this. They happened to be very senior public servants. And they said, we are enjoying the 6.5 cap being put on us. We are loving it. It is focusing us. It is challenging us. It has been the best thing out for us. Why aren't we doing the same? Why aren't we challenging ourselves? You know, I'm not going to get into the politics of what should be, you know, and that's why I've gone just for those 10 activity areas immediately, because they, you know, I'll just say, I'll apply the same baseline over all of those 10 activity areas to be challenged. Let's see what you can derive, but I think you've got such a big problem. You've got to look at it. So, okay, let's look at, we'll go down into individual areas. Water management.
We're at 3 minutes. Yeah.
I think we should finish up there, Quentin, if that's okay.
I think you've got problems in some of your documentation.
What are you referring to?
Well, I think you're cross-subsidising out of water management into other areas. It's meant to be a closed door, closed.
Yeah, that's a discussion we've been having. So we can provide.
Well,
you
I
with
wouldn't
some-
mind having a discussion about it too.
Did you have a discussion with the staff when you had that long? I'm sure they'd be willing to meet with you again and take you through that. If that's
I brought it up with
Explain?
them. They could not explain it to me. And that is why I'm bringing it to the table today, because
Okay.
I think it is of a worry.
okay, we'll take on board that concern and get some clarification. Councillor Coe?
Thank you, Quentin. You've put a lot of time and thought into this, and
No, I haven't.
well, somebody has.
No, I
Somebody's
haven't.
done a lot of spreadsheets.
I had 4 days. That's it.
Yeah. Well,
By the time I could get,
that's a lot more
get into-
time. That's a lot more time than a lot of other people have spent doing the submission. So thank you for that. I take your point about the percentage of gross income. There's a number of ways to solve that problem, and it's interesting that pretty much all the speakers that we've had on this topic have focused in on cutting costs. There's other ways to solve that equation. Another approach is to look at how we raise incomes in Kapiti. And I'm surprised, therefore, that you're looking at cutting back on economic development, for example, which is one way to increase the average income in Kapiti.
Well, I haven't
And
seen a dollar return out of it.
I just fin- and of course another potential solution is to look at alternative income streams other than rates to fund our outgoings. So I just wondered whether you had given consideration to those other strategies for balancing the equation, and we've heard from Mr. Shand.
So we're not responding to submitters
no.
today, Councillor Coe.
No, but
Stick
I'm
to
just
questions only, please.
Yes, okay. I'm just wondering whether Mr. Poole has considered other options for balancing the equation. That's really my
Yes, I
question.
have. And that's why I want to talk about water management, because only 50% of the income raised in that area is raised by fees and in regulatory services. Only 50% of your income is raised by fees and charges. Now, in other words, the general ratepayer is subsidising the regulatory services activity area. Now, it doesn't matter whether it's licensing.
So I think the question was what would you forego rather than going into the water management issue? I'm gonna stop that line of questioning there and go to a quick question from Councillor Wilson. Then we'll have to finish this because we've taken way too long on this submission already. Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, this is fun. We had we've had some submissions today, some of which said in the rates there's about a 10 or 11%, pretty much locked and loaded, and you can't do much about that. And you're saying deal to depreciation completely, which would put us at about 16% anyway.
That would.
But leaving that aside, you've got your 0.9 of your overview has the rates will increase by 19.47. Now, a lot of people are confused about this. I'm one of them because I'm not very good with numbers. But I noticed that the rate increases as they are listed in here. It's a median thing. So the 19.47 number that you've got, is that a median, an average?
Both those figures have nothing to do with medians. They're both to do with grosses. One is gross income. So that's all the rates. And that's what the 17% is raised on. Okay?
Yeah.
But immediately underneath that, you have rates on council-owned buildings. So you rate a council building and you get the money in. So it does not affect, in other words, there's no money actually being changed hands. Then you have rates and remissions. You take those off and you have net income from rates. And net income from rates is what the punters of Kapiti are paying. And that's 19.47%. They are not paying 17%.
I get that. Yeah, I get that. I get the clarification.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good. So we're going to wrap this up now and we'll move on to the Chamber of Commerce. Thank you so much, Quentin.
So that,
I'm sorry. We could have spent another half hour on this because it's such a detailed and fulsome submission, but we've run out of time, I'm afraid.
We'll see what you come up with.
Thank you so much. So we've got Monique Lee speaking for the Kapiti Coast Chamber of Commerce. Next. I don't know if everybody else is wanting to come up as well. They are indeed.
There you go, look at this. Cheers, Rick.
Are you all speaking today? Well, then you don't all need to come up. Maybe 3 at the table would be sufficient. Draw straws.
We're supporting with Q&A.
Okay, well, you can, if you can find enough chairs, go for it, I guess. Generally, it's people who are speaking who sit at the table, but that's all good.
To be fair, Madam Mayor, the Youth Council also had a group.
They had 3. Yeah. And they all spoke.
Loving the thing.
Would you like us to all speak?
No, I think we're good. Great.
I'm happy to step away.
So, no, don't worry. No, you're there now. Don't move. Okay, so microphone nice and close, please, Monique, so that we can hear clearly and the people online can hear.
Kia ora. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. So we've just got the people who gave time to be here today. We're here with one. We're here with a collective. So thank you for allowing us all to be at the table. I've got a little magic fairy sitting over there, and she's typing what you say so I can hear what you say. So please ask questions and have your feedback at the end. Kia ora koutou, kia ora koutou, kia ora koutou katoa. If I may, this week is New Zealand Sign Language Week, and to show our love and our support for New Zealand Sign Language, I will begin our introduction in New Zealand Sign Language and then translate. Good afternoon. Sorry, I won't. I will do it in New Zealand language and then I will do it in English. Good afternoon, Your Worship, the Mayor and fellow councillors. We are the Kapiti Coast Chamber of Commerce here today to speak in support of our submission on the proposed long-term plan. We are an independent voice for business community. What do we stand for? For business, by business. Let's start from a place of collective strength. It wasn't that long ago that council didn't have an economic development team, nor an economic development plan. There was no kotahitanga board. Around that time, Chamber was still 100% volunteer-led and run organisation, totally relying on a select few to do all the doing. We are required to deliver under our Chamber constitution and, of course, on request by the business community. Just side note, I've sent this to your inboxes or betas, so you've got a copy of this, should have landed in inbox. Every day since that time, we have evolved and made progress together. Council now has a fully fledged economic development team, a detailed though now expired AD plan, and a well-oiled kotahitanga board. Chamber has transitioned to a more governance-focused board, supported by an operational team. We have a clear strategy, we have emerging leadership, growing strategic partnerships, and a strong sense of purpose. Council's operational team continues to show us warmth, collaboration, and a willingness to listen. We have gone from reactive meetings, on-demand meetings, dealing with issues that arise, especially for COVID, to bi-monthly catch-ups with the economic development team, to monthly one-on-one catch-ups with council leadership, to monthly one-on-one catch-ups with council leadership and councillors. We have upcoming standing invitations to have even more frequently meetings with councillors. We are excited for the future. Over and above these catch-up meetings, we engage as frequently as we can with the economic development team and continue to look for ways to uplift mahi council are executing. We are participating when we can within the ecosystem that has been established, and we are almost at a point of growth and capacity where we can look to engage more impactfully with the kotahitanga board and other key ecosystem stakeholders. Why are we here? Today we are here advocating for the business ecosystem on the Kapiti Coast to be sustainable. In order for it to be sustainable, it needs to be equitable. Chamber and other entities need to be enabled to impactfully participate and contribute. We have set this out in detail in our submission, which has been taken as read. We are seeking involvement in the development of the Economic Development Trust, the same way that councillors and existing Kotahitanga board members might be engaged. We are seeking support from councillors to help ensure the Chamber and others are elevated to a seat at that table, where we can provide connections, resources, insights and capability to enhance deliverables and fiscal spending. Why are we asking? We are asking for your support on this because we see room for improvement in how our activities cross over, the decisions being made regarding spending, and the gaps we experience that are concerning for the business community. Amongst all of our collective strengths, there are challenges. Today is an opportunity to share some of those with you. We share these to elevate the voice of the business community, to perhaps help you understand why we are here asking what we are asking for. This is our role as Chamber. It's an important role, and it's a role we have committed to make for our members. We'd like to remind councillors that we represent the voice of the community, the business community, your wards. We do not sit here as lone voices. The sheet of paper in front of me was blank several weeks ago. These words and stories we are showing is the collective voice of Kapiti Chamber members and the extended emerging and small business community. We have engaged with sole traders. Thanks to my, helpful minute-keeping people, we're able to actually, note all this down. We've engaged with sole traders, small businesses that employ 5 to 15 people, and larger growing businesses. We spoke with mature businesses who still intend to contribute for another 15 plus years to the business ecosystem. We spoke to younger families, established consultants, sole traders who have moved to Kapiti for a better life for their young families. We've spoken with retired volunteers who bring experience, executive leadership and deep stakeholder relationships into the community within them. These businesses straddle hospitality, health and wellbeing, event management, retail, creative services, te ao Māori, trades, construction and more. The consistent feedback we've received is that they feel unseen, unheard, and disengaged from many of the activities currently in the public domain. They struggle to get their basic needs met and create sustainable businesses within the Kapiti ecosystem. To help you understand the whakapapa behind our requests and advocacy, we provide you with an insight into a few stories.
So you've actually reached the end of your time before you
A
even
local
start
business
the
that
stories.
supports our elderly.
Sorry, could you communicate with her that we've actually run out of time? So maybe pick one story. Yep.
Just 6 bullet points.
Yeah, and we've got the stories in our documents. Could somebody pass that on too, please?
Could we complete?
No, you don't.
Yeah, they're not in the submission, and it's probably the heart of our submission. 'cause it's
Okay.
community
Okay,
voices.
we'll just run out of time for questions, which I'm sure we're keen on. But, yep, carry on.
Okay, a local business that supports our elderly care facilities, and a large chunk of this market is contracted to a Hutt City provider via the council. The attempts to engage with council with this concern have gone unheard. A couple not paying themselves personally before they pay their staff at times, unable to open their doors because of delays or barriers in their consenting process. A local architect working for the decision as to whether to downsize their team or even keep their doors open in Kapiti as they read about an external contractor coming into the district to reimagine the Waikana Library. A talented, award-winning creative who brought his family to the coast for a better life, learning that a lot of our council's digital and creative services are executed by Wellington-based suppliers. Tourism and marketing strategies with very little public-facing engagement. developed by people who do not reside in Kapiti. A major local event that is considering whether the next financial year is viable, with countless contractors working pro bono to uplift them, support them, and work in consultation with the council, all who are unable to on-charge thousands of dollars of their mahi. A local recruitment consultancy that works with external recruitment consultants engage the talent of our future. We know this is only part of the story. We appreciate the context and decision-making processes that go into these decisions, but this is what we are hearing from the business community and what they have asked us to elevate on their behalf. The long-term plan uses their money, their rates, to fund economic development in the district, and these are their stories. I'm guessing you want me to stop here and not continue on with the rest of our submission.
Could you please ask her how much more there is?
Maybe like 2 minutes.
So maybe choose the most important point to finish up on, maybe.
Well, can we have 2 more minutes or not?
Yep, you can have 2 more minutes, but there won't be any questions.
Can I just suggest
Yeah.
that
I'm
there
happy
are
for any suggestions.
Yeah,
It's really unfortunate.
there are
because
very
because
few
we're running-
there are very few exceptions that you step outside of in timelines when it comes to hearings,
Yeah.
particularly these sorts of hearings. But given that the Chamber of Commerce is the representative body for business of Kapiti, I would extend the licence.
Yeah,
as
so I'm
much
not
as possible.
arbitrarily having a short submission. It's because we have a Paraparaumu Community Board meeting in this space afterwards. So I'm actually trying to end the whole day in time. So I'm really sorry that I'm rushing you. But let's just take our time. We do have a 10-minute buffer later on. And my apologies to people who are waiting in the public gallery. But we will just finish this off properly.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks, Councillor Wilson.
I'm jumping down. To thank you. Time effort. We are not here today seeking additional money to be made for economic development or for some specific need or project. We are asking for whatever money is allocated to economic development to be spent in a way that is responsive to the business community, that supports the needs of our business community, and that uplifts those who contribute to the business ecosystem. In order to do that, we are asking you to value the Chamber as a primary stakeholder, as an independent voice for the business community, your wards. It is not going to be sustainable moving forward for you to keep asking people to come to the table, to attend hui, to provide feedback, to workshop, help, support and contribute for the existing return on investment. We rely too heavily on volunteers. We can align our strategies and objectives to help each other to make the journey richer for the business community. We can support the work taking place in support of social impact. We can help bridge the gap between consenting, regulation and businesses. Please show your support for the business community who are generally quite tired and fatigued by uplifting us so the business community has a strong voice in preparing the next economic development plan and has a seat at the table of the proposed Economic Development Trust. I will conclude with the words of others. Some are contained in our submission. Many have flowed in to us following the LTP submission close date. We will look to share those with you in due course. They are: it is essential that the Chamber has support from Council and independent trust so that it can carry on its great work within the Kapiti community. Far too often, ideas and projects are replicated. We can stand up better together. Thank you for having us today. Welcome your feedback and questions.
Look, I'm really sorry that you felt rushed. I think let's find another opportunity to get together where we're not under a time pressure so we can have a really good conversation about some of the things that you're talking about, because there's so much in there. First two people to press their buttons get a question, and after that we'll move on. So we'll wait for another opportunity. Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. And I'm so sorry to rush you. We're just running 40 minutes behind now, and that's putting us in jeopardy of running over the next meeting. So, but thank you so much. It's an absolutely wonderful submission. Really, really great, and so much in there for us to chew over, and so many suggestions for how we can work together better in the future. And thank you for all coming. Sorry, I was just in a bit of a rush when you were sitting down as well, but it's really wonderful to see you all here, and it really speaks to how you want to connect with us and work with us. So we truly appreciate that. Thank you so much. Yeah. So we've now got Paul Turner coming back and Andrew Beatson, Peka Peka Farms.
Hello again. Andrew Beatson can't be with us, but I'll summarise, try and do a few bullet points instead of reiterating what's in our submission. Essentially, the long-term plan has a draft infrastructure strategy, which also leads to a development contributions policy, and that's the crux of the submission. There are some minor areas that are part of the Peka Peka Farm land holding, which should be amended in the extended service area boundaries to include the land which is all under the same ownership. And that's really the key, that the Peka Peka Farm project represents an opportunity with a single landowner and a significant parcel of land that can assist with the infrastructure strategy, which I spoke about before is so important for the district. Jocelyn, you asked about stormwater earlier, and I think that's one of the keys. Perhaps the high point of the project is it's such a large project that it can deal with a lot of the issues that relate to stormwater management, because the land can accommodate, protect land downstream and upstream. Now, I know we're talking about a project and this is the long-term plan, but we also have some other benefits in terms of net emissions, taking farmland to wetland, which has a net emissions benefit. Essentially, we're happy to be included in the funding service area boundaries, and that's the crux of the submission, to cut down things. So happy to take any questions.
Great. Councillor Pravanov.
Yeah, thank you. So thank you for coming along to speak to us on this matter. So I still do want to, it's a stormwater and infrastructure, and so I suppose what you're saying is that there is going to be a mixture of water retention on site. So I suppose I've actually lost my train of thought what I was going to ask, but in terms of is there potential of using current infrastructure such as the Narara stream to provide stormwater facilities there? And I suppose that is an example of a stream that is under, hopefully it's going to get a long-term management plan, but we've also heard today where there's no money for maintenance. So how does that all fit together, putting more pressure on the system as it is currently?
Well, I guess that's the advantage of a single landowner development project, which has the ability to manage the whole catchment to the point that we get to Narara Road, essentially. One of the threats to our environment is flood risk. It's one of the biggest, and that comes from the hills to the sea, as well as from the sea and inundation. So when you have the ability to be able to manage a whole catchment, that can make a real difference to your ability to avoid flood effects down at Waikanae Beach, for example, even though you might be 2 kilometres away. So the short answer is it's a big project. It's got lots of advantages, and the service area boundaries as a part of the LTP is essentially supporting the ability to deliver infrastructure at scale, because you've got one landowner who needs that infrastructure. And we're currently talking with Sean about development agreements. The executive team are aware of the project as well.
So specifically with that location, is there going to be more than one access way? Because I know it's got to put a lot of pressure on Peka Peka Road.
We haven't got to that level of detail. There's certainly opportunities to extend Narara Road, which has got its own issues. The east-west connection through Manu Park and Namanu Road to Narara Road is a key east-west connector. Going south then along Narara Road to Te Moana Road. These are logical network connection points. I see that the intersection of Narara Road and Namanu Road is a key point for not just traffic, but for all other infrastructure. There are multiple connection points for wastewater, for water supply networks, and Electra, and telecommunications, because all of these networks all need to work in a cohesive way. In the past, we've extended Waikanae and it's been essentially unmanaged. So this is an opportunity, and this is what the long-term plan infrastructure strategy does. It sets out a program to create some resilience in the network, and we support that.
Thank you for the explanation.
Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, thanks again, Paul. I really appreciate the strategic approach to this, which you're right, it's necessary. Is it just a fairly quick question, I guess, is that the Peka Peka Farms development, is that more advanced than Green Hill in terms of in terms of delivery?
Right.
How would you see that playing out?
Well, I think that the multiple landowners in the immediate area north of Waikanae represent an opportunity. Peka Peka Farm has the ability to hand-in-hand deliver infrastructure with the creation of jobs and communities and another local centre and so on. So they're different beasts in a way.
Okay. And the same question as applied to Green Hill, is there a sense of anticipation that the infrastructure will be created prior to development in the absence of a development levy or development contribution?
You're right, the development contribution is a payment towards the delivery of the service. So that's where Peka Peka Farm has an advantage in that a development agreement, for example, the developer can deliver the infrastructure with an agreement in place that serves the community with that resilient network.
Yeah.
So that's the big advantage of the scale that we're talking about.
Right. Okay, no, that's good for me.
Thanks. Councillor Halliday.
Yeah, Paul, I took the liberty of hitting our infrastructure manager up in the break, give me a little bit more of an understanding of what you're talking to, so I'm a bit more up to speed with all that now. So, but I just wanted to acknowledge what you just said then, talking that we've expanded, but it's not been managed. That's certainly a problem I think we've got down here in Paraparaumu with regards to the connection of Kapiti Road to the beach. So I just want to thank you for at least front-footing this and bringing it to the table. because those areas will get developed. That's not the issue. It's more the question of when, where, and how. But having a managed approach to it, I appreciate the coming. And I'm picking we'll be facilitating this in some formal way, but it's going to be very much an ongoing relationship.
Yep.
And so thank you for coming in.
Yep, sure. I guess that's the challenge with infill, is you haven't got the ability to manage. You don't know when or where it's going to happen.
Yeah. To talk all those comments. Thank you so much for your presentations today. I think it's a
Thank you.
it's a great approach. Martin Weil. Welcome.
Thank you very much. I have been a primary school teacher in my life, and I appreciate the long day teaching at school and then having parent and student interviews at the end. You're doing a marvellous job. Thank you. Yes. Sorry, just let me bring up my...
If you could try to stick to the allocated 3 minutes, it would be much appreciated.
I want my council to manage core infrastructure services on my behalf, and that's why I believe I'm paying my rates. These rates are all paid for by ratepayer rates. It's reasonable that rate increase annually in line with the average annual household income increase. We have a current economic climate of Kapiti businesses not yet recovered following the COVID era. I ask around, and many of the people that I'm talking with, I just ask them, have you recovered yet? No, I have not heard one person say yet that their business has recovered to pre-COVID position. We've got a ballooning cost of living. Fruit and veggies are gold right now. If you haven't been to the supermarket lately, go and have a look. Increasing cost of goods and services. Fuel prices affecting us all. According to Stats New Zealand, the cost of living index is around 6% this year, whereas salary increases in the public sector around 5% and private sector 4%. New Zealand Fashion Week has cancelled its 2024 season due to the economic downturn and pressures from consumer spending. But I want to detail the following. The climate action grants of $100,000 a year, along with a 2024 surprising rate increase, I would like to ask for the council to stop the giveaways. This is not an emergency, nor anything created in Kapiti. Climate action is a projection on modelling based on certain assumptions, and I'd like to ask that council stop giving away ratepayer money on this. Secondly, expenditure on the Coastal Advisory Panel. I've attended many meetings and cannot for the life of me see the value of expense of ratepayer funds. This public consultation over climate change and sea level rising is a projection on modelling based on certain assumptions, which again CAP is reluctant to discuss, and I understand $3 million to date. Thirdly, water services. Council asks how to pay for the shortfall. Is the shortfall for the maintenance of the services, or does the shortfall include capital expenditure? Council needs to be transparent about this, termed the shortfall. My suggestion is to reduce the shortfall by removing fluoride from the drinking water, something that I didn't ask for, but is added to my water. Water services governance. Fourthly, I'm pleased the coalition government has scrapped the Three Waters co-governance model, restoring our water services to local governance, as it should be. My mother told me, if it's too good to be true, it probably isn't. Three Waters was about co-governance, not about improving water services. Number 5, Transport Hub Plaza. I read that the council signed off on a pedestrian crossing, which then ballooned into a theme park. I read that KCDC did not pursue the Greater Wellington Regional Council's 50% contribution, cost $9 million. Number 6, the roading. Asphalt repair. As a driving instructor, I've seen potholes around town for an unreasonably long time. Do potholes qualify for a climate action grant? Number 7, old person's housing. The questions in the council questionnaire contained 2 questions. The question was, I thought, disingenuous in its wording. In closing, like a family household, I would stick to core infrastructure business. I'm not looking for my council to be a social service that holds my hand and counsels me on how I'm feeling. Secondly, live within our means, spending rates wisely. Thirdly, stop the giveaways and wasteful spending, like the traffic management gone mad. Again, as a driving instructor, I'm astounded at the extent of traffic management. It has gone mad. And number 4, transparent communication with ratepayers and residents. I understand that it must be extremely difficult to engage with ratepayers and residents. I think a lot of people probably turn their pages in the local paper pretty quickly when it comes to council stuff, but I realise, you know, we have to keep chiselling away at it, because what you do, and God bless you for what you do, affects us all. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you. We're all some challenges laid down there, but in such a respectful way. Thank you so much. It's okay. Councillor Coford's agreed to drag signs behind his aeroplane to let people know what's going on in the district.
Thank you.
Are there any questions? No. Thank you so much. Dwayne, the telly. Kia ora, Dwayne. Welcome.
Kia ora, hello. It's going.
So we're trying to stick to the 3 minutes because we're
Yeah,
running a bit
well, I
behind.
was gonna read this out. Do I need to read it out, or?
Is it your submission that you sent in?
Yeah, yes.
No, we've read it. So
Okay.
take it as read and just draw out any points that you particularly want to highlight would be a good thing to do.
Okay, because I've been here for about an hour and I've quite enjoyed listening to some of the other submissions. And
Anybody can read them online.
yeah, and so there is a common thread there, and mine speaks to that on probably a smaller scale than most of the others. And I guess it's about allocating council resources, like the alcohol licensing fees are increasing, and there's been an extra staff member brought from another department to help out. And I did a local government information request basically before COVID and after COVID, and the results showed that there's a drastic amount of time being spent more. It's more than double now than it was before COVID. And so my submission was about where is that, well, first of all, is that extra time necessary, and what is it achieving? And that's what I tried to find with my information requests.
Okay. Do we have any questions? Councillor Halliday.
Yes, through you, Madam Chair. Look, Dwayne, just wanted to check, you're aware, you've submitted in on the licensing fees
Yes.
aspect of things, isn't it? So that's a different process than the long-term plan, but they've bundled the two.
Yeah, well, I couldn't make it on the last day, and so they
Oh, no,
offered
no, this has been the holding them. There's nothing wrong
Yeah.
with that. No, that's cool. I just wanted to check, in regards to your submission, what is it you're asking? Are you asking for the rates? Are you not happy with the increase that's being talked to?
Well, as my worry is the scrutiny going to increase? Because I've shown that it's increased a lot after COVID than before COVID, and I've also shown that it hasn't achieved anything more or less than before COVID. And so it was more about allocation of the resources and, where that money is going to go with the increase.
Could I comment on that, Madam Chair?
Mm,
Well, I'll just look just briefly with regards to what's being looked at. There hasn't been an increase in those fees for quite a number of years. How many years? Nigel?
No, I don't think we're going through that
Okay.
kind of thing.
And,
We'll be responding to the submissions, and we
Okay.
can go through that then. Yeah. It's for questions today. Councillor Pravanov.
Oh, yes, thank you for coming along today, and I'm pleased that you enjoyed listening to the presentations beforehand. So from what I'm hearing you say, it's about the amount of scrutiny that potentially could increase.
That has increased and.
Yes, that has increased.
And could increase more,
Yes,
yes.
so are you saying that it has increased because of the time frame it's taken to consider these applications, or it is actually a change in the questions that have been required for applicants to answer?
That is really the question is the health and police have a 15-day reporting window and the council has an open amount of time to use that time afterwards. And so, yeah, who is using that time? That is the question. Are the police and health going overtime on that? Or asking questions outside of the 15 days? Or, where is the time going?
I don't know whether, and I'm not sure whether it's actually the days are counting from the day the application is actually lodged, regardless of whether or not it's been put on hold because of other required information, or whether they're working on other applications because there's so many of them that they can't get to
Well, who
your
knows?
particular one.
It's not
So
for
there's a
us
number of reasons
to guess that
potentially.
today.
I'm just trying to unpick.
Yeah, and so
That's-
really the angle that I was coming from is, do we need more of that?
More of what?
Extra, I call it scrutiny, but the processing times is another way of putting it.
Okay. Thank you. You've raised some interesting points.
Councillor Warwick.
Hi, Brian. Thanks for coming.
Shelley.
It's just a point of clarity. So it's not the increase that you're here about. It's the process, and whether the process has increased. Has increased the need to take.
It's just going to result in more bureaucracy, basically. Yeah.
And you've talked about the fact that if you're if you're a good operator, you still get the scrutiny, and maybe that could be streamlined a little bit because they're not respecting
No,
good
there hasn't been an enforcement action since 2016, so there wasn't a problem. Well, there wasn't anything to fix, I don't think.
And so having a look at what is behind
Yeah.
the staff
And
time.
so one of the things I thought that could help is councillors. I've learnt in my time as a publican that councillors cannot talk to council staff because they could be too demanding, and so a layer was in between of democracy services. And one of my ideas that I put forward was could democracy services slip in between after that 15-day reporting window in between the other agencies in council?
So I don't know where councillors come into the process at all. We do have way more access to staff than other
Yeah.
councils across the country in Kapiti.
Yeah.
We do have what we call a one-team approach, which is quite challenging for our staff sometimes, but we certainly appreciate it. Councillor Coфord?
Oh, thanks, Madam Chair. And just a quick one, Dwayne. To put things in perspective, we've spent a lot of time together as chair of the food bank, and you've put a lot of time into the community. Are you finding the extra bureaucracy and fees and things are taking up more time, and you're putting less time into the community? But
Ultimately it's my responsibility, and I've got the alcohol license, and so in the end, if something goes wrong, the buck stops with me. So it does feel a bit overbearing sometimes when I'm responsible for it anyway.
well, I'll take my hat off to you. Yeah,
Yeah.
thanks for helping.
Councillor Wilson?
Yeah, if it's helpful, that the cornerstone of this is about the safe sale and supply of alcohol, which can be a very dangerous product, and so it's quite important. I would just say, in my experience, the staff that we have here have been extraordinary in this area. There is a massive workload, and they get through it, and the quality of the reports is just outstanding. I've seen other reports from other councils around the country. The quality of the reports we get here are superb, and I think the interaction between the applicants and the staff shows why we get so few. We don't get much in the way of hiccups or hearings compared to a lot of councils that have a lot of those. So no, I celebrate the way it's going, and I know it's a pointy end for you guys if there's going to be a fee increase, but it hasn't been one for 12 years.
Yeah.
So yeah, for what that's worth.
That did verge on a response, and I did stop Martin before. So yeah, it has been a bit of a discussion with some thoughts around the interface between our policy setting and what happens on the ground. So I think we need to organise some further discussions for you, maybe with relevant staff, and some feedback on some of the points that you've made, if you're interested.
Yeah, no, that would be good. We have had meetings with the agencies before, and it did produce some interesting things and made me question where some of these ideas were coming from, which I put in my submission. And yeah, and so that interaction is good, and yeah, so it is a four-way thing between the businesses and the agencies.
Yeah, great. Thanks for your time today.
Thank you
Hugely
very much.
appreciated. Kapiti Air Urban, Marcel?
Just slide up another chair. We're good to go.
You're welcome. Yes,
Yeah,
welcome.
Kia ora tātou. Thanks for having us. Really want to engage with the council on what we see as a significant opportunity. So this is not bringing problems to the council, but bringing potential, and really want to extend the conversation from this discussion forward. Many of you will be familiar with the submission, I'm sure. Some of you will have seen the vision that we've tested and put out there, and engaged with various folks on. This has been developed by a number of community and business leaders, Catherine Corrich, Guy Royal, Shane Hunter here to my left, Gordon Moller, the architect. So we're looking to sort of energise interest in something that we believe could be game-changing for the region on economic, social, cultural and environmental parameters. We partnered with Puketapu Hapu. Takari's here. Thank you, Takari, for participating in this. Really, not only do we see the potential of the airport and the surrounding whenua regionally and the benefit to the community, but also we see it as a way of restoring mana whenua. There's historical issues associated with that land, and opening up economic security for the hapu, and see that as a fundamental part of the proposition and the strategy going forward. So it is about long-term value creation. Found it somewhat disappointing that in the long-term plan, 24 to 34, there was no reference at all to the airport, zero. That is a bit of disappointment, and I feel an oversight in terms of economic development potential. That is an asset. The current owners might see it as a liability, but we see it as an asset that should be leveraged for the benefit of all. And I find it also quite paradoxical that in the long-term plan of 21 to 41, which is actually a long-term plan, it's 20 years, it was mentioned 13 times fairly positively. So I'm now confused about how long a long-term plan is. So we're here to sort of plead our case to take a more serious look at this potential against economic, social, environmental and cultural parameters and work with us to realise the potential of our place in Kapiti. So I sort of leave it at that. Takari, if you want to add something from your perspective.
I quite like questions, but I'm here because the Puketapu Ki Paraparumu trustees have been looking forward to the opportunity to give this serious consideration and to put together a proposal that can go on the table to the hapu, to the community, that has had the detail in it enough for our hapu members to see the potential for the future for our rangatahi, and also for housing. We've been here nearly 3 years ago, and we were in the middle of building our trust, and so we're in a better place now to look at, and with we're working with Alvarium. I'm not sure if you know about how that's happened, but we have moved past the Templeton option that was put before us of 3,000 houses on our land cut up and dispensed with. So now we want to see if this asset can truly work for us, and we want to see it in detail. So we're back with this opportunity, and Marcel and the team to really dig down and be able to offer the community, the hapu, the region, this potentially awesome way of using this beautiful whenua. And must say, I've always been quite a strong supporter of this idea, because we keep the land in front of us, not given away all over the place. So, okay.
Thanks, Takari. So we've developed a strategy to achieve the restoration of mana whenua and develop a multi-use of the land, which incorporates airport, housing, tech investment and tech hub, the commercial precinct. So a multi-dimensional outcome, which I think appeals to different perspectives around the community. That's easy to say, and catching up, Liz, at one stage you said it's complex, and it is, but that's also makes it that much more important, that we put our best foot forward, because otherwise, we're dealing with something that will probably be a blot on the landscape, for quite some time.
Great. Thank you, Marcel, Shane, Takari, for coming in today and for highlighting that important chunk of land that sits right smack bang in the middle of our district. You'll notice that our long-term plan is quite bare bones. There's not a lot of extra things in it this time, but it doesn't mean that we're not interested in what you have to say and your concept and ideas for the future. So, Councillor Coe?
Thanks, Marcel. And as you know, we're on opposite sides of the argument sometimes on this issue. But I respect your vision and your commitment to seeing something good come out of this process. I have some questions. You've talked about establishing an independent trust. I'm just wondering why Kapiti Air Urban doesn't just go ahead and establish one. And I have heard from the previous owners that, if you write a big enough cheque, they'll sell it to you. So it's just, why is it not simply a matter of setting up a trust, raising some money and writing a cheque? That might be a bit simplistic, and I know there's iwi considerations in amongst this as well. I also wonder to what extent you intend engaging with the community around what they would see as important in terms of how to use the land, and also just the economic feasibility of what you're proposing, because if people are going to invest in this trust, they will be expecting a return obviously on their investment. So it's a bit of a loaded question, but
there's quite a few questions actually. And certainly, the Kapiti Air Urban has no pecuniary interest in this, and so in terms of setting up an entity, you know, we would see that as part of the process that we're working through with Puketapu Hapu, and certainly from the point of view of the restoration of the land, we see that as part of the sort of structure that, you know, that would be developed with the Hapu. In terms of an entity running the, you know, the sort of multi-dimensional outcome, again, that would be part of, you know, the process of securing investors and shareholders in that entity, of which Puketapu Hapu would be one. And so for us to proceed with a trust and try to drive that, you know, from the point of view of our specific position would, I think, again, sort of narrow the scope and the stakeholding interest. We don't want to emulate the past by bringing in the next generation of ownership as a commercial entity, but bring in a, you know, future contemporary structure. So we have thought about those structures. In terms of, you know, sending a cheque, well, it comes down to commercial negotiations. So yes, we are engaged with Alvarium, and you know, the cheque's got to be right from the point of view of both parties. So that's, you know, work in progress, and I think you know, the ability to come to a commercial outcome is to some degree influenced by, you know, perhaps your next question is the sort of community interest. You know, what do folks want to see in this asset, and certainly you know, with respect to community interest in the airport, you know, recent surveys, and that goes back a few years now, consistently voted, you know, 80 to 90% in favour of retaining the airport, and so we see that as part of the you know, the structure, you know, going forward. Business plan, we do have a business plan. In fact, you know, outside of financing, the airport is commercially viable today. You know, there's no airport around the world that's viable just off landing fees. You know, they are retail businesses, they are car parking businesses, they are hotel businesses, and currently Kapiti Airport, you know, gets income from the commercial rentals, you know, that are on the airport whenua. So, you know, that is, you know, a fairly simplistic, you know, starting point. I'd grant you that. But then, you know, you'd obviously use that as the basis to build a, you know, what is potentially a very, very attractive proposition. But it would need to be, you know, governed with a multi-dimensional view. It cannot be just commercial. It has to be environmental, social, and culturally conscious.
So
as well.
what contribution would you expect council to make to that process? You know, why can you not do that under your own steam?
I think the council, what I would seek from the council is strategic, you know, engagement and, you know, leadership on this. The community has got an interest, you know, in the whenua. They have voted you to sit around this table. So, you know, rather than being, you know, passive, take a more forward view in terms of what this could become. And that could be through the Kotaiatanga board or the entity that's being developed. But to not have the airport mentioned once in a long-term plan, to me, you know, seems, you know, an oversight, particularly when the, you know, the tagline is building a resilient future.
Yeah, I think we've heard that. I don't think we want to go down this line of building a trust in a possible future, because it's kind of more like suggestions than questions. So I'm going to park that
I'm
there.
just wondering what the request from council is specifically.
Well, if
is it a
it's
request-
not clear from the written submission, then I don't think we can clarify that today. I think
it is
I think it's
detailed in
pretty
the
clear.
submission.
Yeah, it is and I think we've heard today that it's feedback. There's not always a request, but it's also feedback on the consultation document, which we've received today, which is concern at the lack of the mention of the airport, and a wero to us to if we're interested in it to progress that.
We'll leave it there.
Yeah,
because we're out of time.
and we are. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Marcel. We heard from Michael McKeon earlier as well. In terms of in a practical sense, in terms of council being able to strategically engage with the community about this, I wonder if you have an idea of what form that might take, and also in a practical sense, unless there's a willing buyer, willing seller situation, or there's an application for a plan change, in which case the council would then be, so the council would have to be cautious about what its strategic
So,
approach
Councillor
is.
Wilson, careful you're not responding to the submission.
Yeah,
And
no,
we're
so-
asking questions
yeah.
for clarification.
Well, that is my question. I was just giving it some context. But so how do you think that engagement might happen? The strategic engagement with the community.
I think might be as simple as asking the question, and as time moves on, people will, form views. But at the moment, there seems to be, no real engagement on it, and probably for a lot of reasons, because it is exhausting. But it's something that we as a region could apply to future benefit, and so as a council.
Oh, yeah, I
with
think
oversight.
we've heard that today, loud and clear. Councillor Cofer?
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I've had a little bit to do with the airport over the last 55 years.
There you go.
Now, just a couple of questions on just what you've said. The Puketapu Hapu, have you been involved with any offer backs or anything? There is a question here. The offer back was originally when Sir Noel Robinson subdivided the airport. However, it's just been recently established that it was the end of the Second World War when the airport wasn't needed. So it goes back to then. So has that been sorted out with a claim?
All I can say
I don't think that's. I don't know if
No,
that's a
no,
question
it was
for today,
raised-
but,
no, it was
but feel
actually
free to
raised in-
respond if you'd
Yeah,
like to.
yeah.
only that's under the under
Treaty
LINZ.
settlements, is it?
No, it's under LINZ at the moment.
LINZ,
We're
yeah.
working really hard to
Yeah.
straighten out all the paperwork
Good,
on the
yeah,
airport.
okay.
And we're nearly at a critical can
Good.
sign off and say, well, we feel like, all the legal issues around the Public Works Act for us have been expressed and we're working with LINZ and
Okay.
our
The Surveyor General
partner.
is onto it.
Yeah, it's
Good, yeah.
commercially
Okay,
kind
no,
of
thank
weird,
you.
but we're spending all our energy sorting out the paperwork.
Okay.
And we're pretty pleased with how it's going.
Good,
Put it that way.
Thank you.
Yeah, the descendants of the
Just
original
another
owners.
quick one. You also alluded to there was income coming from those leasehold land. When Sir Noel Robinson subdivided, he made an agreement with the community that the leasehold money from those buildings would go to not just the maintenance but the upkeep of the airport, and we're going to get a beautiful Maori kite building and et cetera, et cetera. Is the airport actually getting that? And there are 19 leases bringing in $7 million now a year. Have we got a cent of it for the airport up?
I think that's kind of outside the
Oh, no,
scope
no,
of
what
the
was that?
submission.
It was mentioned.
Yeah,
It
I'll
was
just answer it
mentioned.
simply. I think it really is up to the current owners to decide how they want to measure.
Oh, we won't get a cent then, will we?
Sorry?
We won't be getting a cent then, will we? Okay, thank you. That's
Yeah, it's up. They've structured their business the way that they need to, to express their strategic, preference. Let's put it that way.
I do think it's a fair question, though.
Yeah.
I think the community has a right to ask those questions because the airport is in our community. It is
Sure.
But,
Yeah.
that's the same questions as we ask.
Yeah.
But as
There are a
you say-
lot of questions that are very legitimate that we could ask about the airport today, but unfortunately we don't have
Well, it was
time.
raised in the submission.
Thank
It
you
was just
so
raised
much
in
for
the
coming in
submission.
today.
Sorry.
We really appreciate it, and for your ongoing advocacy for your vision.
Thank you.
So and the future of the airport land, which is so important. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we have one
All
more
the best.
submitted. All the best. Thank you so much.
Cheers.
We've got Otaki Waka Hoi Charitable Trust
Kia ora.
online.
Kia ora koutou.
Does anybody else want to sit at the table to support today? No? You're all good? Come on, sit at the table. Join us. Haere mai.
doesn't know we're here. Kia ora.
Roi mata, you're good to go. You want to
Tamahi
unmute
nui.
and get going?
Yes, I just organised, I put a request through earlier today to arrange access to the Zoom so I can share a presentation. That'll help. That'll keep me focused and on task and hopefully keep it as brief as possible. I'm sure you've had a long day. Am I able to share now? Let me just check. Yes, brilliant. Thank you. Just going to go to that. All right. Now I can see. Jolly good. Awesome. Tēnā tātou katoa. Tuatahi ka mihi au, kia koe te koromatua me te paipai a te kaunihera nā koutou I tūwhera I te papa kia tātou katoa. I just want to thank you for the opportunity at the end of what has probably been a long day to give us an opportunity to put forward the submission to the long-term plan. We have shared a document just so that we don't spend too much time talking about the background and history of the Ōtaki Wakahui Charitable Trust. Ultimately, our mission is we are committed to the well-being of our communities through the cultural and social sporting activities of Wakama. And there are two clubs in Ōtaki that make up about just under 20% of 548 paddlers who registered to race in the regional regatta and also at the national sprints in New Zealand, in Auckland. We regularly attend race events throughout the Hoitonga region, which is Wellington, Wairarapa, Wanganui and back down. And we book out all of the ACOM, we book out all of the restaurants, the Airbnbs. Ngā Hapu Ōtaki also have members who paddle as well, and well, we are one. And so the cultural and economic benefits of what we do are fantastic for any town that is able to host. And so regional regattas are something that we have been working towards developing a venue for. We would like very much to host regional regattas here, and we've been at Winstone Lakes for nearly just over 10 years. And what I'm showing you here is a vision that we have for Winstone Lakes. It's a vision to establish an educational, recreational facility for the entire community, not just for the Wakama Hoitonga community. But, you know, we want to create a space that integrates seamlessly with the links, with trails and cycleways. We have the cyclist walkway, bridleway network that's already established that can be accessed from the Te Roto Road access point. So, you know, everything is already in motion. And I just wanted to give you a bird's eye view of the network of lakes that are being developed. And the council know well about the development here. A fantastic asset for the community. Presently now with a larger lake, in future, all of these lakes will eventually be a fantastic asset for the community. The problem is these assets are currently landlocked. If you look at the top left, you'll see a blue circle. This is where the two Wakama clubs and the radio-controlled yacht club are currently based. There's the car park. We have containers for storage. Ultimately, Ōtaki Wakahui would like to see us lift that blue circle over the fence onto the Greater Wellington Regional Council land on the other side. What that enables us to do is to work with Winstones to complete the excavation and beaching of that lake so that this can actually become a viable venue for hosting regattas. It needs to be made that much more bigger to be able to host, to put in race lanes. But of course, it's landlocked. And at the moment, we have to, you can see this dark red path. This pathway we have to use to access the lake at the moment, by vehicle that is. There's absolutely no way anybody can walk in from that end. We're walking through a quarry. So the health and safety standards are pretty rigorous. We're living on borrowed time in terms of how long we can continue to use this access point. The obvious alternative is the pathway that's outlined here, highlighted in yellow. And you'll see that I've put in blue circles here We need to be able to put in place a gravel-based car park with bins, not just for those who use the lake regularly, but also for dog walkers, cyclists, and so on. Locked gate access, we would recommend. And so this is just, some of the immediate issues that we think could be resolved by working with councils. And that brings me to the slide. What can we do now? In 2024, I've got 4 things that we have already listed in the document that we've forwarded to you. Essentially, number 1, land transfer. We'd ask the council to consider whether a section of the paper road can actually be land swapped with Winstone Aggregates, and this allows us to open up the access from Te Roto Road. This minimises disruption. It actually removes any disruption to industrial activities with the quarries. It also allows us to then move on to point 2, put in a car park. And we're not asking for a tar seal car park. We'd want the council to consider the impact that increased visitors have already begun to have on that space. And so there is already a small car park, for example, on Te Roto Road. That is now always full because it's a small car park. And I think we need to give consideration for the Te Roto Road residents to minimise the environmental impact that access to the cycleway already has. Requires a bigger car park, requires bins, gets all the traffic off the Te Roto Road grass verges as well. The Trust, or Take Waka Hoi, are thinking about public toilets. All the time we're thinking about public toilets. We fork out thousands of dollars for portaloos each year. We want anybody that's in our midst to use those portaloos, ultimately to maintain water quality and environmental health. Actually, I've skipped over number 3, so I wanted to take you back. This is really important to us, and that is a co-management plan. It's actually really vital with increased visitors and users of the lake that we have in place a plan of co-management. We believe with Mana Whenua, Ngā Hapu Ōtaki, and with Greater Wellington Regional Council and, of course, Kapiti Coast District Council. People currently entering this space do not know how they can, how to use that space properly, who do they talk to about running events and all of those things. Ngā Hapu Ōtaki invited us to be a part of developing a project scope, which we understand has been signed off between the Greater Wellington Regional Council and Ngā Hapu. I would let them speak to that. But these are 4 things, 4 actions we think we could embark on sooner rather than later. And of course, I'll take you back to that vision, a very ambitious goal that we have to develop the lake as an asset for the community and a venue for regattas. I think, ka nui te kōrero, I think that's enough from me. I guess questions this might be a good time for questions if there are any.
Thank you so much. I'm sure there will be. What an exciting vision. It looks incredible. And thank you for sharing the presentation. That really helped us who, aren't all that familiar with that area. I'm a little bit familiar, but not super familiar. Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, kia ora Roemata.
Kia ora.
Yeah, it's a fabulous facility. Just running in terms of option B, which I personally would favour, Greater Wellington Regional Council's land. Have you submitted to GW's plan, or are you planning to? Or
yes, we will present to them on the 27th of May. I think it's the 27th or 26th of this month. So, yeah, we definitely have been talking to them, and actually because Ngā Hapu had invited us to be a part of the development of the project scope. There's been a lot of dialogue with them, and I think they're very supportive of developing, this area, these lakes, as an asset for the entire community. And so option B is definitely something up for discussion. I think, that's all I can say to that. Yep, we'll definitely be attending the hearings.
Okay, and the other one is, do you have a preference for one of the options? Is there the one that you would choose?
Yes, the preference that we have is for Te Roto Road, and that's to do with the proximity to our base currently, and that even if we moved the base over to Greater Wellington Regional's land just on the other side of the yellow line here, in terms of hosting regattas, it is better to be located there. So proximity to the land allows us to we can open up that space for car parking. That allows people to set up gazebos to watch the racing from that side, that end of the lake. It also minimises disruption to industry, while option B would provide a separate access way. We're still on that side, and our preference is to just remove ourselves from that space altogether. Of course, beggars can't be choosers, and so but yes, definitely our preference would be to access from Te Roto Road. While there might be a car park, we would hope there'd be a car park on the paper road. There would also be a second car park by the Wakama base, obviously ideally on the land on the north side of the fence line. That's our preference.
Yeah, and my last question, because it relates specifically to the long-term plan. So if there was a land swap or transfer, has there been any estimate about what the value of the cost would be if there had to be a land purchase?
That's a good question. That's not something that I've looked into, but that's a good question, and so no, not from us at this stage, no.
Cool. But again, brilliant facility. Yeah.
Oh, it is. Yeah, thank you.
I think it's Councillor Coe next. Oh no, Councillor Pravanov.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ramata, for your presentation. Maybe it's because it's a bit late in the day, but I'm actually struggling to get my head around who owns the various patches of land or the roads that provide access to this lake.
Shelley, are you able to take Jocelyn through that after the meeting, because we're kind of running out, seriously running out of time.
Okay, yes, because obviously that determines who to go and talk to.
Yeah, Shelley will
thank
give
you.
you a heads up. Maybe take a
Oh,
screenshot.
thank you, Shelley. Thank you. That would be great. Yeah, if you could answer that question. Any other questions?
Councillor Coe?
You look, fabulous vision. I'm just wondering how you propose to raise the funds you require to achieve the vision in full, and over what sort of time frame. And I just wondered also if, once this is established, will it attract national regattas or even potentially international regattas? Because if so, I think the Economic Development Kotahitanga Board would be very interested in the project.
Absolutely. What we need to be able to do is to prepare the space to accommodate race lanes, and to remove the car park where you can see the waka, this bird's eye view here, for this area to be removed, opens up the lake and allows us to host what I would call regional level regattas. But we host a lot of events throughout the Hoitonga region, and you can host national level coaching clinics, time trials, smaller regattas. Basically, our capacity to host national level events is determined by how large we can make this lake. So the larger the lake, the bigger the events, and especially I think also whether we have the car parking and all of the other facilities with that. And that is really determined by our own vision and resource, really, at the end of the day. In terms of a facility that we could enjoy as a community, a building that doubles as storage, as well as, an area for spectators, a multi-purpose space would require investment, obviously from across the region. The Economic Development Fund for sure would definitely be a start. We would definitely be looking to investors, public, private, all of those things. and if we have a facility that is national class and certainly regional, it just opens up the space for education, for academies, and for clubs, and not just for Wakama. There's huge interest already growing by dragon boaters and other recreational clubs. As soon as the place is a lot more visible now from the expressway, so we field a lot of inquiries, which is why we believe a co-management plan between councils and mana whenua, the sooner the better, to be honest, because we get a lot of inquiries and we'd like to support Ngā Hapu and councils to manage things like water quality and the use of the space.
Okay,
That's
thank you.
fantastic. So I've got 3 more people with questions. So I'm going to go through those, but 1 question each. And if you could keep your answers really brief, because we've got another 4 minutes, and then I really want to leave 15 minutes. We've got to reset the space for the Paraparaumu Community Board meeting. So we'll shoot with, we've got Lawrence Kirby next, and then Martin, and then Shelley. 1 question each, and short answers, please. That's okay. Thanks.
Kia ora roimata, tō Lawrence Kirby tōku ingoa. I just want to ask a question about the receptivity of Windstones to the conversation around the extension of the lake and the work that would need to be taken on in that. Are they open to those conversations?
I think their intention to leave that space is ready to use, ready for use and enjoyment by the community is definitely positive. In fact, actually, I've spoken with Gary Edwards, and he has a wonderful vision for those lakes in the future. It's not entirely his decision, of course, but they've certainly been very good about tidying up the edge of the lake. There was some extra excavation that had to be done a couple of years ago, and so I think they would. I think they would be. To me, it really is about finding the resources to make that happen, because of course it costs money to excavate the lake and to finish off the beaching. But yes, certainly in principle they have been.
Great, thank you.
Councillor Halliday.
Yes, there is a question here. I just want to say how fantastic this opportunity is. We talked before about having projects in the area. Palmerston North pre-plans them and then looks for funding. This, by far, from my perspective, has been one of the better presentations we've had through this long-term process because it's got a vision and it's got a plan and it's got a whole heap of really motivated people. So actually, there's not a question there. I just wanted to say that.
Thank you. Well said,
I think
Shelley.
the kaupapa here is awesome.
Well said,
I went along on the walk around about 3 years ago and that sort of stuff, and I can't believe that this hasn't gone further than what it has. But what's up on the screen there, I can't wait to embrace it, and I'm looking forward to seeing how we can make this a reality. The only other question I had was in relation to staff. I didn't have a submission reference number on the document that we just received. If I could have that, we much appreciate
We'll tidy that up.
That's my
Thanks,
question.
Martin.
Thank you, Martin.
Awesome.
Shelley, the final word of the final day.
In answer to Martin, I think the problem has been the access, and you can't invest in a landlocked asset. So that's the crucial thing here is access and getting around the table. KCDC has an asset that they can contribute, which is a paper road, and Greater Wellington owns actually the lake. So, but I just wanted to compliment you, Roy Mata, and your team, because you give a heap to our community, and you've got 3 teams going to Hawaii, and you just have a lot of input and positive input into our kids in Otaki. So thank you.
Yes.
Thanks very much.
Yeah,
And
no-
this is a tēnā watu koutou. This is a project that can only be made possible by a collective effort. Councils, mana whenua community. Tēnā koutou.
What a perfect way to end our submission hearings. Ngā mihi nui.
Tēnā
It's just
watu koutou.
such a positive, beautiful vision, and so well presented. And, these suggestions of partnerships and working together, just a wonderful way to finish our submissions. So thank you all for attending the submissions.
Thanks very
And
much.
we'll just close with a closing karakia quickly. Just we'll close with a karakia, seeing as we've finished all our submissions. Ka whakaere e te tapu kia wātia ai te ara, kia tūru ki whakataha ai, kia tūru ki whakataha ai, hui e tai ki e.
Tai ki e.
Thank you all for a
Thanks a lot.
really wonderful session. Only because I had to push it.